Hello, this is On Air, and I'm Klara Syrewicz. After a long military build-up, war in Iran has begun, and just like any other conflict, it has opened a multitude of scenarios and heightened uncertainty. The military and political outcome in Iran will define global prospects well beyond the region. Today we assess how these shockwaves affect Iran's no-limits friendship with Beijing and, of course, its partner in Moscow. Joining us to navigate these issues is Arkady Mil-Man, former Israeli ambassador to Azerbaijan and later to Russia, currently a senior researcher at the Institute for National Security Studies in Tel Aviv. Hello, Ambassador. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
After the killing of Iran's supreme leader, the foreign minister of Ukraine wrote, Assad, Maduro, and now Khamenei, Putin has lost three of his closest pals in little more than a year. The domino of deposed dictators must continue, and Putin's fall one day is inevitable. So do you think that Putin has grounds to be worried at this stage, or is he actually welcoming the distraction that this war has created?
I wish, but I'm not sure that it's possible right now. Because now the situation is that Americans, they're focused on Iranian issue. Now it's a war. It's a real military operation. And now it's strikes after strikes. And we'll see what will happen in the next few days. And we will see a real shift in all this situation in the Middle East. So I'm not sure that today there's an attention of what's going on in Russia, and especially with Putin. But we'll see in the next weeks what will happen.
So do you think that he is somehow glad that this is happening because anything that puts stress on the United States is good for him? Or do you think that the loss of this ally is actually making things more problematic than good for him?
I'm not sure that he is happy with what is going on in Iran. I'm not sure that he is happy if there will be change in Iran, because this regime of Iran and regime in Russia, they are partners. It's almost strategic partnership, but it's not alliance. Mm-hmm. Because there's some common interests, but still there's mistrust between these two countries. But because of all the situation regarding the war in Ukraine, and because of the European-American sanctions on Russia and on Iran, these two countries, there's no choice for them.
Yeah, so it's an alliance of convenience.
Yes, it's an alliance of convenience, and the Western country pushed them. But today, this is, we can call it axis of evil, because there's also North Korea, there's also Hezbollah, terroristic organization in Lebanon, there's also Hamas, Islamic Jihad, etc., and other different kind of terrorist organization. This is the axis of evil.
So you would actually place Russia there, because Russia has been a staunch ally of Iran, but it has also armed Hezbollah. Yes. It has supported various
Houthis, for example.
It has supported the Houthis. It has supported other proxies of Iran across the region, and especially in Syria.
Even have some connections with Shiites militia in Iraq, also.
Russia has.
Yes, of course. It's a very complicated operation from Russian side, but they have relations with this organization and with these countries.
Now, my question is, can they afford to still support Iran and all these proxies right now? Russia has been obviously very vocal about what happened, but materially it has done nothing to support Iran after the attack. And so did China, the other great friend of Iran. I mean, China did send 16 planes with military equipment just before the war began, but right now it only evacuated very efficiently its citizens. But besides this, it hasn't done anything. But do you think that in the longer run, there is a scenario where they could come to the rescue of Iran?
I'm skeptical about this scenario, and it's good all of us. Of course, on the declaration level, on political level, diplomatic level, Russia and China will coordinate their efforts to help Iran. For example, UN arena, the Security Council, other international organizations, different kinds of disinformation campaigns to support Iran, like there was some strike on residence of the Prime Minister of Israel. It's completely fake. But military, they have problem because they have their own problems in Ukraine, so they can't help. And to open the second front, for them it will be very difficult. And there's no intention, like it was in 12 days war in June last year. So we hope that they will stay neutral from military point of view, but politically and diplomatically they will help Iran.
Yes, I mean, they've done that before, but do you think that they could be helping Iran with satellite intelligence or other forms of intelligence?
Yes. Iranians and Russians, they have a real good cooperation in this area. And, for example, in the last 2-3 years, Iran launched some satellites with Russian help from Russian territory, from Cosmodrome Plesetsk. And these satellites have some kind of intelligence capabilities. And this is very important to understand. So Russia in this way supports and helps Iran to have some kind of military intelligence. And of course, there's some contacts between Russian GRU, that is military Russian intelligence, with Iranian military intelligence. And these contacts are quite, it's not rare contacts, I will say. I remember that during the 12 days war, when the foreign minister of Iran, Arakchi, visited Moscow, it was late June, and from Russian side, one of the Russian delegation was the head of the GRU.
The GRU.
Yes. So it means that there are very, very close contacts. Russia is not a neutral part from that point of view. Russia not our friend. Russia is enemy.
Of Israel too?
Of Israel too, in my opinion, yes.
That hasn't been really clearly stated on the part of
no, of course,
Israeli government.
Of course, Israeli government has to take in consideration different kind of, I would say, different situations. But we have to understand, Russia is an anti-Western country with anti-Western ideology against the liberal democracies. So Israel is an enemy for Russia. There are, of course, some politicians in Israel and the military establishment that they don't see Russia as a real enemy. But this is the situation. And Israel, Russia, and especially military and security establishment of Russia, they think that Israel is a part of this Western conspiracy against Russia.
I mean, as a close ally of the United States, obviously.
Of course, and from time to time we hear different kind. Of course, condemnation now of the Israel and American attack on Iran, there is a Russian condemnation. So we have to act. We can't sit and see how Iran develops a nuclear program.
Well, speaking of nuclear weapons, there's been a lot of nuclear saber rattling in Russia just before the current war in Iran. The backdrop were the negotiations that were taking place with Iran on non-proliferation. And suddenly you had Dmitry Medvedev, who was saying that apparently Ukraine is on the cusp of having its own nuclear weapons provided by the West, and that this would justify a preliminary strike on Ukraine and on the country that's procuring these weapons. Now, we both know that this is beyond insane, but my question is, why would that narrative be peddled at this particular time?
Oh, it's a difficult question because there's a different kind of declaration, Medvedev's declaration. He is not in the position, and I'm not sure that he is in the decision-making process on these issues. I think a lot of his declaration, it's only declaration. There's nothing behind this, but it's a part of the Russian disinformation campaign, and especially for local purposes, because they have to convince their local population that Ukraine is a real enemy with nuclear weapons, so we have to continue our war.
So you mean this is like trying to compare the situation of Ukraine with the situation of Iran? So the US is attacking Iran on the grounds of it having potentially nuclear weapons or having them soon. So Russia justifies its invasion of Ukraine by saying Ukraine is on the cusp of having nuclear weapons, and so this is that's what it's meant to be.
In some way, yes, of course. You know, Russia calls Putin, especially calls Ukraine as an anti-Russian project by the West. This is the.
It's not a country; it's a project.
It's a project. And Foreign Minister Lavrov said, ex-Ukraine. Why ex-Ukraine? Because it's our territory. Putin said, we liberate now territory, Russian territory in Ukraine. This is a part of their narrative. They have to justify this horrible war on Ukrainian ground. And that's our problem. This is a problem of liberal democracy, the problem of Western countries, of Europe, of the United States. Our problem is that we really underestimate the Russian military capabilities. And Russian army, they really learn very, very quick and in a very intensive way. And now we have a real problem with the drones, with different kinds of UAVs in Ukraine. We have a different countries with Russian missiles and with the quantity of this, of the huge amount. And it's a matter of dozens of thousands. It's not only hundreds, it's dozens of thousands. And it looks very, very dangerous. And in Poland, of course, the political and military establishment understands in a very good way that this is a real threat. But do you think in Italy the same situation? Do you think the same situation in France? Do you think the same situation is, for example, in Hungary?
Spain.
Or Spain,
Hungary.
or Portugal, or, for example, Slovakia? It's not the same situation.
Well, Hungary and Slovakia are specific. Yes. I think they do understand, but they would rather not understand. Yes. But let's talk about the oil trade and go back to Iran for a moment. The disruption of the oil trade that this war has caused will affect, obviously, China, because Iran has been mostly exporting to China. So I guess this is somehow in the interest of the US, even though it creates havoc in global markets. But could Russia profit from this situation? Because it is competing with Iran in the same market.
Yes.
And therefore, could it be selling more oil? Could it see its oil revenues heightened by the situation in Iran?
And now the prices, they go up, so it's okay. For short term, they will, of course, there will be some kind of gain for Russians, not for Iranians, because now there is a problem. Of course, they compete, Russia and Iran, on Chinese market. There's a real competition. But on the other hand, we know that Iran helps to Russia to transfer Russian oil to China.
Shadow fleet. Okay.
Yes, the shadow fleet. So there is in some way competition. On the other hand, there is some cooperation. But Russia now will be on the very good side because they will receive more quotas, I think, and China needs oil, so China will buy Russian oil. That's of course, it's obvious. But still, we don't know what will be the result of this war. We know how the war starts, but we never know how this war will be ended.
Speaking of that, because let's talk about the big question now, which is regime change in Iran. Do you think that there could have been some sort of backroom deal, some sort of conversation going on between the US and some levels of the Iranian regime before the strikes, similarly to what happened in Venezuela with Delcy Rodriguez? Is there a Delcy Rodriguez in Iran?
We don't know. We don't know because there is no historical case that with only strikes from the air there was some regime change. We don't know. It's never happened. Maybe it's the first time that the regime will be really changed in Iran because of these strikes of Americans and Israeli air forces. President Trump said that there are 4 purposes of this war, but there was, he didn't mention the purpose to change regime in Iran. So we don't know exactly.
President Trump, the stated goal of this operation at the very beginning was the liberation of the people of Iran. That was like the first and foremost justification of this war.
Yes.
And the US and the Israeli governments have been calling on people to go to the streets and to protest. So there's this kind of tipping point strategy here where we're kind of counting on the security services being weakened by what happened and people's anger and frustration at the government boiling over. But that could just as well create a civil war. So to rephrase my question, wouldn't it be more convenient for the US and for Israel to have some form of this regime in place, but a more pliant, more open one that would in time normalize relations with Israel and maybe other countries in the region would be more keen on nuclear deal and so on?
President Trump sometimes changes his mind.
Sometimes.
Yes.
Yes.
Sometimes, and sometimes there are different kinds of declaration. Now the latest is he didn't mention the changing of this regime. So we have to understand that this moment, practically, there are some goals of this war. It's destruction of the missile technologies of Iran, of nuclear program, of infrastructure, of military and security facilities, etc., etc. But there is no change because it's too difficult to change the regime with these air strikes. And maybe now there's understanding that it will be maybe a difficult process. It will take time. It's impossible to do it in a few days. And during these strikes, it's impossible to see people on the streets, yes? It's dangerous. So it's really difficult to understand how it will be in the next few days and what will be the next development in this issue. We don't know. Now, important thing is to destroy these military and repressive facilities of Iranian regime. And maybe next stage will be uprising and real demonstration of people, and maybe the Iranian people could take the power and change this regime.
Wouldn't that be too destabilizing? You know, I'm just thinking about a Libya in 2011 scenario.
Or Iraq.
Obviously, I mean, Iran has a very much stronger civil society. It has a different political culture that I think is more likely to create some form of stable government. But at this stage, considering the country is very impoverished and after years and years of sanctions, it's a powder keg.
Yes.
So And it's a big gamble that the
Yes,
US and
I
Israel
agree.
have taken in that context.
You're right. Destabilization of Iran could be horrible consequences of this war, because it's a population of 90 plus million of Iran, different ethnic groups,
Different languages.
with different interests, with some of them, of these groups have ammunition and different kinds of weapons. It's could be disaster, but it doesn't mean that we don't have to take responsibility and destroy this military infrastructure. And also the success was killing of this terroristic leadership of this country, including Khamenei, head the Minister of Defense, the head of the Islamic
Revolutionary Guards.
Revolutionary Guards, Islamic. This is a very, very smart decision to end all this.
Will it end this? Because apparently every one of these officials has at least 4 people that are meant to supplant them. And I think Hezbollah actually functions the same way.
This is important to do it and continue to do it. And I'm sure that Israel will continue to do it. There's no choice. We have no choice.
This is a limited military operation in your view. So it's all about destroying specific facilities
Yes.
and then stop. And then taking the aircraft carriers and everything out and
this
finish.
is a very important point. The leadership now is in the hands of the American president. The American president understands that there is, in public opinion in the United States, is a bit skeptical regarding this military operation or this war. And the different kind of polls of public opinion say that there is not a majority of the American population supports this military operation. So he understands it. And this operation couldn't continue for months or years. It's a matter of few weeks. And President Trump said 4, maybe 5 weeks, maybe less. So this is a really limited military operation. And with this continuation, destruction of these capabilities and infrastructure of Iranian army and military security capabilities, it will give, for President Trump, some kind of very, very big advantage to continue some kind of diplomatic negotiation process to find solution for Iranian people. Maybe it could be some kind of change of regime or some calibration or some changes. Maybe we will see some groups in Iranian political and military security establishment that they will decide to change their policy. Maybe. We don't know.
I'm hoping that you are right and that this military operation will not take longer than a few weeks. And I would like to thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us on this special and early episode of On Air. We won't be here this Saturday, but we return in 2 weeks on March 14th. I'll see you then.